and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus. So I just had a little commentary tonight that hopefully is of some benefit to people, and it concerns how when you lose a loved one, it cuts through most of the BS when you get into this field, these topics like going out of body, having astral projection experiences, spirit communication, and things like that. So this idea kind of comes to my mind through reading a lot of people's posts on astral projection or out-of-body experience groups and things like that, and seeing how so much of it is built upon a foundation of fear. Because I think when most people, for example, they feel the energetic vibration in their body and they feel themselves rising up, most people, they nope out of that situation pretty fast. It's creepy to them. This really changes when you've lost a loved one and your motivation, the reason you're doing this work, changes and becomes a much more focused on basically love. Before we go further though, I want to mention that this is Afterlife Topics where we do talk about this type of thing. It's not everyone's cup of tea. It might be your cup of tea, in which case I encourage you, please hit that subscribe button, help keep this whole operation going. You can also become a patron at the Patreon page in the link down below, or just hit the PayPal donation link at my email address, which I have listed. Okay, so to continue. So many things hold people back from really delving too deeply into this field of study, this area, whatever you want to call it, afterlife studies. And in particular, it's that fear of the unknown. But it really manifests when people talk about having negative experiences, like in a sleep paralysis state. But also it manifests sometimes, I think, when people overthink metaphysical concepts and begin turning reality into a kind of twisted or paranoid version of itself. There's people who think that when you die, you have to live your same life over and over again, like Groundhog Day. There's people who think that, all of reality is a simulation made by aliens, or the people who think that 50% or 90% of all the people in the world are NPCs. They're not real people. Like a lot of these ideas, right? And whether it's very fearful ideas or so some of those concepts are taken just a little bit too far. When you're grieving, when you lose someone, when you're bonded, when you're connected by love to somebody else who has left this world, then a lot of people, their attitude really changes, because the question becomes like, does that belief, does that idea, does it help me get closer to the person I love or not? And sometimes things don't. People I know who are committed to having out-of-body experiences so that they can connect to a loved one that they lost, they can go out of their body. They could be Satan himself, with hooves clomping around their house when they're out of body. And you just be like, screw you, Satan. I don't have time for you. I'm looking for my loved one, and that's all that matters. Because when you really love someone, you have that connection. And it's also going to allow very positive experiences, and also experiences that are much closer to truth, much closer to reality, whatever that reality may be. So it immediately sets in motion the intention to have an experience, to communicate with the other side, built from a foundation of love, which automatically makes something kind of like the way it's supposed to be. People who go into this work looking for power, looking for answers to, metaphysical ideas, or people looking, just being curious, just exploring for fun. You can have experiences, but it's going to be more difficult compared to when you approach the subject from that baseline of basically love. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't approach these subjects, or you should give up unless you've lost a loved one. Some people have not lost people close to them. But do keep in mind that someday you will. And that alone should be motivation. Some people are also missing close relationships. And I think that really, if anything else, we need to evaluate the relationships we have in our lives and think much more about death and how you're going to feel when that person that you're with, whether it's a parent, a sibling, a spouse, or a friend, when they're not with us anymore, and what steps are possible, what information is possible about an afterlife, about where they go next. Because as soon as someone dies, the physical sciences, the materialist culture, whatever we're used to on this world, as soon as someone dies, is now beyond the realm of conventional science. It's beyond the realm of conventional academia or anything else for that matter. And we immediately go into the metaphysical, for which I think there is answers, and there is its own form of science. There is its own, there is its own world that you can be involved in. But it, you can kiss goodbye all the conventional parts of the world, and then you have to go into this subject to find those answers, and that's what people tend to do. I've often said that the people who will bring out awareness of an afterlife into the greater public domain will be grieving mothers. I know there's some grieving fathers too, but predominantly for some reason it is the mothers who we see in groups like Helping Parents Heal, but also many in afterlife topics and metaphysics and the Facebook group, who have that motivation above all else to bring to light information about the afterlife and to be able to have experiences, have spirit communication experiences, have astral experiences, and to precipitate them from a position of really what is the most positive position possible. And it almost guarantees that people doing this, they don't have negative experiences, they don't have to deal with shadow people and the things that people worry about on the forums so much, and the things that prevent people from trying to create an out-of-body experience, because they're focused on seeing their loved one again. And not everyone succeeds. For some, it's a very long process, but for some people, they do succeed. They do get that validation finally, even if it takes a lot of practice to do it. And it's not just the out-of-body work. You have practice, whether it's practicing clairaudience or EVP or different ways to get in contact with the other side. It's like there has to be that motivation in place. Now, for me personally, even before I lost my mother, before I lost my father, before I lost my brother, I still kept this afterlife material as a little bit of a backbone, because there's one, of course, extra bonus to this field of study, is that it can make a person almost fearless in their endeavors in this life, because when you awaken to these other realities, you start to see the big picture about how it all fits together. You realize mortality was just an illusion all along. And with that, it really allows people, I think anyone, to live this life a little bit more fearlessly. And that is also one of the big benefits. But when you lose a loved one, when you lose, especially people who've lost children, I've known so many now through this channel and through the Facebook group, through the books. I don't want to sound at all insensitive, so I'm careful in my word choice. And I'm hesitant to say opportunity, but there is an opportunity in the sense that a window has been opened. A window that many people don't realize was ever there. That they're able to look out a window and maybe see the big picture, maybe see new vistas. And this has happened to many people who have found a kind of greater, I guess, spiritual awakening, when they've lost that close loved one, and then they've been able to breach that connection, which again, when it comes to love, there is no facet of modern science or materialism or academia that's ever going to plug that hole. And I hate to say it, because I don't want to poo-poo on modern, psychiatry, but when you take the afterlife context out, in my opinion, it's always going to be a bit dry or a bit stale. It's always going to be difficult to fully put those pieces back together, because they can never say your loved one you lost is still there, in a literal context or in a different parallel of reality. They can't say that, because they'd lose their medical license. But if you step a little bit outside of the mainstream paradigm, this is where a lot of the answers are. Because our mainstream civilization, we are not an advanced civilization. That's why the answers are not always in the mainstream world. Because we're so primitive. That's why the ETs see us like those islanders off the coast of Thailand who haven't been exposed to, the outside world, and, when stuff washes ashore, they think it's messages from the gods, but they have a Coke bottle. That's how ETs think of us, And there's a reason they think of us that way, because we are quite primitive. And so in a civilization like that, we have no choice but to look beyond our typical kind of mainstream worldview to find answers like, where is my loved one? Where is my child, my spouse? Where are they now? What are they doing? And how do I talk to them again? Because we've all been lied to about the way the universe works. And that's what we have to do. That's just my commentary tonight. Hope it was of some benefit to you. Of course, you get involved, pick up a book like The Afterlife and Beyond. It's on the bottom right side of the screen. You'll see the image of it. My second book, also the Understanding Life After Death. It's a good primer if you kind of want to, take the journey down the rabbit hole, I guess, not to be too cliche. And of course, there's the Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics Facebook group, just to comment or shoot me a message, and good ways to get involved in this community. But again, I hope this was of some benefit to you. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.